Imagine being someone who feels deeply, someone who senses moods before words are spoken, who can pick up on pain behind a smile, who genuinely wants to heal others. That's the heart of an empath. And for all the beauty that empathy brings, it also comes with a shadow. Empaths often attract people who are wounded but manipulative, people who take instead of give. When an empath meets a narcissist, it feels at first like destiny. But it's not love. It's a trap disguised as connection. And those who go through it walk a long emotional path marked by 6 distinct stages. Stage 1, the magnetic connection. It begins like magic. The empath feels they've finally met someone who understands them. The narcissist mirrors their dreams, values, and emotions perfectly. It's not a coincidence. It's a calculated imitation. The narcissist studies the empath carefully, adapting themselves to appear as their soulmate. In this stage, everything feels intense. The narcissist showers the empath with attention, admiration, and affection, a process known as love bombing. The empath, whose nature is to give and to feel deeply, opens their heart completely. They think they found someone who loves as deeply as they do. What they don't see yet is that this intensity isn't intimacy. It's a strategy to gain emotional control. The empath's intuition whispers that it might be too good to be true, but they silence that voice, convinced that such love must be real. The connection feels spiritual, fated, as if the universe itself brought them together. In truth, it's the start of an emotional addiction. Stage 2, the subtle devaluation. Once the empath is emotionally invested, the narcissist begins to shift. The compliments become rare, the criticisms more frequent. The warmth fades, replaced by coldness or indifference. But the change is subtle enough that the empath doubts their own perception. This is where the manipulation deepens. The narcissist alternates affection with distance, praise with punishment. They may withdraw suddenly, then return with charm, leaving the empath anxious and confused. The empath begins to overthink. Did I do something wrong? Did I say something to upset them? And that's exactly what the narcissist wants: self-doubt. The empath, being nurturing by nature, tries harder. They start to accommodate, to fix, to please. The relationship becomes a project, one the empath feels responsible for saving. They believe that if they just love more, listen more, forgive more, the warmth will return. But it never truly does. Stage 3, the emotional erosion. At this point, the empath begins to lose themselves. They become hyper-focused on the narcissist's moods and needs, constantly monitoring the emotional climate of the relationship. Their own needs fade into the background. The narcissist may use gaslighting, distorting reality so the empath questions their memory and perception. Phrases like, "you're too sensitive," or "that never happened," slowly rewrite the empath's sense of truth. The empath's natural empathy turns against them. They start to rationalize the abuse, convincing themselves that the narcissist behaves this way because they've been hurt or because they need more love. This stage is emotionally exhausting. The empath may feel anxious, depressed, or disconnected from themselves, but they can't quite name why. They're trapped in a cycle of trying to heal someone who doesn't want to be healed. Stage 4, the awakening and cognitive dissonance. One day, something shifts. The empath begins to sense that something is deeply wrong. Maybe a friend points it out. Maybe they read something that resonates too closely. Or maybe, in a quiet moment, they hear their own inner voice saying, "This isn't love." But awareness doesn't bring instant freedom. It brings conflict. The empath now faces cognitive dissonance, the painful clash between the person they believed the narcissist was and the person they truly are. The empath struggles to accept that the beautiful, loving version of the narcissist was an illusion, a mask designed to trap them. This is one of the hardest stages because the empath's heart and mind are at war. Their rational mind sees the manipulation, but their heart still longs for the connection that once felt so pure. They may leave the narcissist, only to return again, caught between clarity and emotional addiction. Stage 5, the disengagement and withdrawal. Eventually, the empath reaches a breaking point. They're too drained, too disoriented, too heartbroken to continue. Something inside finally says, enough. Whether they walk away or the narcissist discards them, the separation is deeply painful. When the empath leaves, they often go through a period that feels like withdrawal from a drug. The highs and lows of the relationship created a biochemical dependency, bursts of dopamine during love bombing and cortisol during conflict. The brain becomes addicted to the cycle of chaos and relief. The empath may miss the narcissist terribly, even while knowing how toxic the relationship was. They may feel guilt, shame, and emptiness. But beneath that pain, something else is forming, the first sparks of self-awareness. During this stage, the narcissist may attempt to hoover, to pull the empath back in with promises, apologies, or sudden vulnerability. I've changed. You're the only one who understands me. But it's never real change. It's a lure. The empath's greatest danger is believing that this time will be different. Stage 6, the healing and reclamation. This final stage doesn't happen overnight. Healing after narcissistic abuse, especially for an empath, is a process of rebuilding the self. It begins with silence, the decision to stop explaining, stop defending, and stop absorbing the narcissist's energy. It's the realization that saving others isn't the same as loving them. The empath begins to turn their sensitivity inward, toward themselves. They learn to listen to their intuition again, to honor their emotions instead of suppressing them. They start setting boundaries not as walls, but as acts of self-respect. Over time, the fog lifts. The empath starts to remember who they were before the manipulation. Kind, open, strong, creative. And perhaps for the first time, they understand that empathy is a gift, not a weakness. They realize that love doesn't mean sacrificing peace, and compassion doesn't mean tolerating cruelty. They learn to tell the difference between connection and control, between vulnerability and victimhood. In this stage, self-compassion becomes the medicine. The empath forgives themselves for not seeing the red flags, for staying too long, for believing the lies. They understand now that the narcissist never loved them, only the reflection of themselves they saw in the empath's light. And when the empath finally withdraws that light, the narcissist fades into irrelevance. The empath emerges wiser, stronger, more discerning. They no longer rescue at the expense of their sanity. They no longer confuse intensity with intimacy, and slowly they begin to trust again, not others, but themselves. Because in the end, what the narcissist tried to destroy, that deep capacity for love, becomes the empath's greatest source of power. And what began as a story of pain becomes a story of rebirth, the moment the empath stops trying to heal someone else and finally begins to heal themselves.